Welcome to Crash Landing. My name's Steve, and every episode I'm going to be guiding an intrepid explorer as they crash land on an alien planet. They have 1 hour to choose the 5 books they couldn't live without on their brave new world.
Warning, ship crash landing. You have 60 minutes to enter the archives and recover significant cultural artifacts. Authorization required. Identify yourself.
Hello, I'm RJ Barker, and I have written the Wounded Kingdom trilogy, which is Age of Assassins, Blood of Assassins, and King of Assassins, which will be out in August, and they are about Gerton Clubfoot, who is an apprentice assassin, and his master, Merila Khan, and they don't actually assassinate anybody. They solve crimes in a fantasy setting over 3 books, and there is an overarching story about their relationship and this land and how it changes over about a 20-year period.
Excellent. And I've read the first 2 of your books so far in the trilogy, so I'm looking forward to the third. And having looked at some of your book choices, I can definitely see some of the influences there.
Yes.
So, tell us about your first book and why you've chosen this.
My first book, which you might have to tell me the names of my books.
The Chronicles of Morgaine by C.J. Cherryh.
Yeah, I sent them to Stephen, and I managed to delete the list. And I'm quite famously easily distracted. Anyway, yes, The Chronicles of Morgaine by C.J. Cherryh. I read this when I was probably 17, 18, and you go into it, and it's not immediately easy to read. It's written in quite a mannered way. And it's about a relationship between this Vanya, who is a barbarian, and Morgaine, who you kind of think is a witch when you read the first book. And then this is spoilers, everybody, as you go through them, you find that actually she's an interdimensional alien queen who is closing down these gates between worlds. And she doesn't really want a friend because she's not very nice. But Vanya insists on coming with her. And although they are having these massive, big fights and destroying worlds, it's really about their relationship. And I think it was a huge influence on the Wounded Kingdom books.
So how were you introduced to this book? Was it all of the series of Morgaine? Was it through the library, or did someone give it to you?
I suspect, 99% of my books, I found it in a second-hand shop and thought, that's got a cool picture on it. Because it does. It's got a really cool picture on it. She's got, all this white, blonde hair that's sort of, around her. And she's wearing, black leather armour. And she looks very, very goth, which is probably why I bought it. It's a book about goths. And it's not. And then you read it, and it's really quite heavy and literary and dark. And it's not a very happy book. They don't have many laughs. But, I'll have found it in a second-hand shop. And I think I found it as The Chronicles of Morgaine. And I think there is a 4th one, which I've never read because I've just never come across it. But there might not be. I might have dreamed of that.
Maybe. For anyone who has read them, let us know.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's a mix of fantasy and science fiction. Is that right? Yeah,
it is. But it's very much reads like a fantasy book. They're quite fantasy worlds with barbarians, and Vanya's very kind of a very Conan-y figure, but he's quite thoughtful and intelligent. But it is all about this relationship they have, and it's sort of fascinating. And it's not a romantic one at all, which is good. It's one of friends that is massively unequal at first, because she is hugely technologically advanced, and he's grubbing about hitting people with a sword, and that's his level of technology. And they kind of over the books start to sort of reach a parity, and it's just really lovely. She's an amazing writer, C.J. Cherryh, though. Rim Runners is also brilliant. In fact, everything I've read by her has been amazing. So you've now gone back and read everything else after this, then? You fell in love with her writing as well? Yeah, I've read quite a lot of stuff. I have quite a chaotic way of reading. If I see something and I think, it's them, I'll get it. But I don't tend to go and seek things out. I like to just randomly come across things. Does that make sense? Having spent some time with you,
makes perfect sense.
Yeah. There's no rhyme or reason in anything I do.
So it's unusual for a man and a woman in any fantasy story, really, to be friends, and for there not to be any kind of romantic thing between them. Is it hinted at, or is it just never there?
I can't. It's a long time since I've read it, and I did what I do with all books that I love, in that I lent it to somebody, and you never expect to get a good book back if you lend it to somebody. But I don't remember there being any hint of romance. I think there's kind of a feeling of longing from him, that maybe something could happen, but she's just like, no, it's not from her, and she's an incredibly cold figure, really, throughout the books. She's kind of doomed, and she knows she is, and she doesn't really want him to come across, and it's a tragedy in a lot of ways that I can't quite remember the end of.
That's good, because you won't spoil it for anybody who hasn't, because I've not read these either. So,
they're definitely worth tracking down and reading. They're written in a. I just remember reading it and having that sort of dislocation of this isn't what most books read like. His voice is not the sort of voice I was used to reading, and I had to get used to how he spoke, and I love that in a book, that it sort of forces you to become somebody else.
Well, yeah, even though you don't have full recall of it, it's obviously left quite an impression on you. If this central relationship is still, key.
I don't have full recall of anything apart from Watership Down, which we're not bringing with us.
You've chosen for once not to take this one with you.
Well, bullied, maybe, better word, I don't know. But yeah, it's not coming, because I always talk about Watership Down. And I like to think that I can just remember Watership Down if I need to.
Yeah, if you know it so well, you could write it out and then read it back to yourself.
Yeah, I could. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, I'll tell you what your second choice was.
Yes, yeah.
Since you sent me the list. So your second choice was The Book of Night with Moon by Diane Duane.
I love this book so much. I had never heard of Diane Duane when I came across this book. I bought it because it had cats on it. Mm-hmm. It was, again, in a second-hand shop. I like cats. And I liked the title of it. I thought that's an interesting title that doesn't really tell you anything about it. And then when I kind of read the back of it, I thought that sounds ridiculous. Because the whole idea of it is it's our world. I suppose you kind of call it urban fantasy, but it's written from the point of view of a cat. And this cat is an interdimensional wizard. And Super String, which must have been big at the time when it was written, that's where we get the idea of cat's cradles from, and they can use their claws to open super string portals and jump between worlds. And they're there keeping our world safe. And it sounds so ridiculous, and she absolutely sells it all to you. It is just amazing. Apparently she writes a lot of Star Trek, just Diane Duane. I'd never heard of her before this book.
Right.
And she clearly loves cats. And there's something happens in it, and it is so sad. It makes me feel like crying just thinking of it. But if you like cats and magic and trains play a huge part in it. This book is for you.
It sounds absolutely bizarre.
It is. It's difficult. I've tried to tell so many people about it, and they just look at me as if I'm a bit odd. Don't say anything.
I didn't.
Stephen. I can see your face. I can't actually see your face, but I can imagine what you're. And I can imagine Nazi, our publicist's face as well, if she's listening to this. Yeah, it is. But she's just. They leap through into this other sort of world where they have their true bodies and they're like massive tigers, and then they come back here and they're tiny little house cats. And some people can speak to them. And it sells it so well that for quite a long time afterwards, whenever I saw somebody sat somewhere and there was a cat sat near them, mm-hmm. I thought, oh yeah, it's two wizards having a conversation there. And she invents this game for the cats that all cats play. That's like three-dimensional chess, right, played out across a neighbourhood with yourself as the piece, and it's marked on how high up you are, how many cats you can see, and how many cats can see you. And it's just astounding. You watch it, and then you watch cats and think, yeah, they're playing. It's real. All of this book's entirely real. I think it actually might be. I think it might just be a documentary, and no one's picked it up. But,
there's the Tiger in Your Living Room, the documentary, and then there's this, the Book of Night with Moon.
Book of Night with Moon, and I can't recommend it, especially if you're a cat person, which I know you are.
Yeah.
It is possibly my favourite talking cat book, and I've read quite a few talking cat books.
I haven't read many. I think the only ones that I've read were all the various talking animal ones growing up with, on the farm and things with fox and badger and everybody else going on travels and stuff like that. But talking cats, I don't think I've... There's a Jim Butcher's got a new series out with starting with the Aeronauts Windlass, and the cats in there are evil geniuses that talk. But they're not wizards, they're just cats, but they're incredibly clever, and they've got their own society with a hierarchy, and it's very strange. But yeah, mostly about humans, but with some talking cats.
Yeah, that's just true. I have a theory that I find it very difficult to believe books that if they deny the existence of cats in your fantasy world. If somebody actually said there are no cats here, I would immediately, I just think, no, cats are in every place. They're interdimensional creatures that exist in all realities. They're not like anything else. But I'll bring, next time I'm somewhere you are.
Yep.
I'll bring it to France. I'll bring the Book of Night with Moon. Don't let me forget.
Okay.
I'll lend it to you, because it is just amazing how much she has nailed the character of cats and this whole sort of magical thing that's going on as cats try and save a completely oblivious humanity from these terrible threats that are going on.
How many cats do you think she has then?
Diane Duane, I reckon she's probably a 3-cat person.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and that's a good amount of cats. Is 3.
We're at 3, and it's the limit. So yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, see, we did have 7 once, but we're a 1-cat house now. We're not going above that. This cat he's enough.
I've seen the pictures of what he gets up to. So yes.
Yeah, he's been doing a lot of lolloping today.
Oh.
So they're not graceful, are they? People say, "Oh, cats are so graceful," but they're not. They're just noisy, like elephants running around for no apparent reason.
I was talking to someone about this the other day and saying that, a dog in your house you can understand because they serve a variety of different purposes, whether it's they're hunters or ratters or companion animals, or they help people who have problems with their sight. And then you've got a cat who is the perfect domesticated predator. That's it. I mean, yes, they are companion animals, but you sort of think, what else does a cat do? Nothing. It's a predator. So you live with tiny predators in your house.
They test your cushions for you, make sure they're comfy. Bertie gets under the covers if you leave him. He'll come and you won't be able to find him, and you'll find that he's under the covers on the bed, which he's not allowed. And I think that's the only reason he does it is he knows he's not allowed. Yeah. He said, if that's all right, yeah, okay, Bertie, you can do that. He'd just be like, nah, not interested anymore.
They definitely test limits. They're very good at that.
Yeah. Did you see there was a thing about them recently, and it said that cats are more intelligent than dogs, understand a lot more than dogs do. They just don't care.
That sounds about right, to be honest.
Yeah.
They just choose not to do anything about them.
Yeah.
As a big cat person, I think I might have to read that book. It does sound exactly like my kind of thing.
It is astounding. I've not come across anything. I know she's written Star Trek books, which probably I'm not as interested in, but I think I would pick up other stuff by Dan Duane if I saw it, definitely on Strength, the Book of Night with Moon.
Well, the 3-dimensional chess thing, that's in Star Trek as well, so...
It is, isn't it?
Maybe she started it. Maybe she's the one who put it into Star Trek.
Yeah, it's not as exciting as with the cats, though. Because they're not furry, are they, in Star Trek?
No.
Everything's better if it involves a furry animal.
Yeah. It's not a triple.
Yeah. No, not a triple. No, they're rubbish cats.
Right. Your third choice, I'll tell you, is HMS Surprise by Patrick O'Brian.
Oh, I love Patrick O'Brian. He's one of my absolute favourite. He wrote these are the books that the film Master and Commander is based on, with Russell Crowe, who is not the Aubrey Maturin of the books, but Russell Crowe is very good at being him, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And it's about Captain Aubrey, who is a lion of the sea, and Dr. Maturin, who is a little wizened, ugly man, and is his doctor, aboard HMS Surprise, which is their ship. And they're fighting Napoleon's navy, as they do. And Dr. Maturin is also a spy, because he hates Napoleon with a passion. And really, they're books about friendship. And what happens is you read a Patrick O'Brian book, and there's maybe 298 pages of people talking about ships and the sea, and 2 pages of action. But they're just beautiful. Everything in it is beautiful. He does sort of male friendship like nobody else. Not quite so good at ladies. Generally, his books are better if they don't have ladies in them, because he doesn't really do it very well. But when they're at sea and they're learning about it, and you have this brilliant relationship between it's an obvious one, but a really good one to use, where Dr. Maturin knows nothing about ships. He's an idiot. He cannot get on a ship without falling in the sea. It's a running joke. But he's very capable in lots of other ways, where Captain Aubrey is astounding at sea. There is no one that is his match, but he's an idiot once he's on land. He wins loads of money by taking ships, and then spends it all on con tricks that people get him into, because he's a fool. But because Dr. Maturin knows nothing about ships, that's how he teaches you about them, and you learn all about these ships through Dr. Maturin just not getting it. And HMS Surprise has the greatest line in literature in it, which you're going to have to put up with now.
Go on.
But Dr. Maturin's a naturalist. He brings animals on board the ship all the time, and he brings a sloth on board. And this sloth lives in the rigging and loves everybody, apart from Captain Aubrey. Now, Captain Aubrey is quite upset about this, but he can't let on, of course, because he's the captain. He has to be hard. So when nobody's looking, he dips bits of ship's biscuit into rum and feeds them to the sloth. So whenever it sees him, the sloth comes to him then, and Dr. Maturin is very pleased with that. He said, I'm glad relationships between you and my sloth are thawing, Captain Aubrey. And Captain says, yes, we're friends. And then one day, Dr. Maturin bursts into the cabin of the ship where the captain is doing captain things, to find his sloth passed out face first in a bowl of ship's biscuit and rum, completely pissed. And Dr. Maturin goes, "Sir, you have debauched my sloth." And he's absolutely furious, and the sloth has to be taken off the ship at the next thing and go into detox. And it's just genius. And mad things like that happen in them. One of the books opens with Captain Aubrey having to go across France dressed as a bear to escape Napoleon.
Right.
And it's just not explained. It just starts and he's dressed as a bear, and it's just written as though, of course, this is normal. It's just like, what? And they're wonderful books. Wonderful. I've picked HMS Surprise because it has the sloth bit in it, which is my personal favourite little bit, but it could be any of the Patrick O'Brian books that I took with me.
So you've read all of his. Is this someone who you have then gone and read the rest of them because you enjoyed the first one?
I have read all of them, partly because they have very beautiful covers. I like pictures of ships, and I wanted all the covers, apart from the 21st one, which Patrick O'Brian died during the writing of.
Oh.
And it's half finished, and then they've put all his notes and stuff in it. But I'm not reading that because then I can pretend in my head there's going to be more, even though there actually isn't.
I have the same thing with David Gemmell books, because he wrote the Troy trilogy just before he died, and he wrote the first two, and he was halfway through writing the third one when he died, and his wife finished it, and I've never read the third one. Because I can't really, because once I read it, that's it.
That's it. It's all done. It's finished. And you can't. Did you read the crime one they put out?
So that's the weird twist. 2 new books have come out from David Gemmell after his death. The 2 crime novels that he wrote before he started doing fantasy. One's called Rhyming Rings. I think the other one is Black Swan, White Night or something like that. But he wrote the first one, and it was published under a different name of Ross Harding, a very small print, very hard to get a hold of. And you could get a copy, but it cost you, several £100s. Now, they've both come out. So I'm going to read them, but I haven't tried reading them yet.
I've not heard great things about them, to be honest with you. The reviews of them have not been sort of overwhelmingly positive. But I can't imagine him writing crime. It's really weird.
Well, it's from when his time he was apparently, he used to work as a journalist and also as a bouncer. Yeah. So he met various people through both of those jobs and got to know some of the criminal underside of where he lived. And through that, he then started writing these crime books, I believe.
Oh, I might have to read them.
I'm going to have to at some point, but I'm not sure I can ever go back and read the last Troy book. But
it's just too final, isn't it? I can't do that with Patrick. Yeah, I know that. It's just like I just like to imagine it's still out there, just doing a Ger Martin and letting his next book take 50 years to write. and I'm quite okay with that. I just imagine it's going to come. It'll be all right. I'm happy. Yeah.
But you then haven't gone read a lot of other sort of naval fiction books, have you? Or is it just Patrick O'Brian that you read?
I do kind of. I'll get obsessed with a genre,
right,
rather than a writer. So I did read a lot of naval fiction, and that's how I found Patrick O'Brian. But once you've found Patrick O'Brian, no one else quite measures up. There's Hornblower, which is quite fun, and there's a few other writers, and it's like there's lots of writers that are not as good as Patrick O'Brian, and he's just amazing. And the thing is that a really good book is not about its genre, is it?
No.
And the Patrick O'Brian books are not really about ships. They're about friendship, and that fascinates me generally in books. So it kind of nails out big ships and friendship. So I'm quite happy with that.
Well, having read the first two of your books, I can definitely see how that theme comes into it of unusual, layered, and changing friendships between two people.
Yeah, there's big changes coming for number 3, but we're not talking about it, are we? We're not talking about it.
But equally, we can say that the two main characters in your book, you said, are Girton and his master, and they have quite a complex relationship. Which, having now heard some of your choices, I can understand where the influences come from.
Yeah, definitely. I can feel that. I can feel those books behind me, kind of whispering.
So, your fourth choice is Darkfire by C.J. Sampson. What's this one about?
I'm going to talk more generally about the Shard Lake books, because there's 6 of them, I think, rather than one in particular. They're written during the end of Henry VIII's reign and the beginning of Elizabeth I's reign, or the other way round. I've taken quite a lot of cold medication, and Stephen will tell you I'm confused anyway. And Matthew Shardlake is a hunchbacked lawyer who wants nothing more than to be left alone. Again, this is something that has come into Age of Assassins, because he's a hunchbacked lawyer. You have Girton, who is club-footed, and his disability is not one that massively holds him back, but it's one that is commented on by people, and he's looked at as different and strange, and he's a very clever man and a very good lawyer, and he's mercilessly used by people in power for this mind that he has, which gets him into terrible trouble, and he just wants nothing to do with it. And he's kind of, there's this sad sort of doomed atmosphere of a good man who is destined not to escape this kind of trap that he's been put in. But he kind of likes it. He kind of likes the idea of righting wrongs. But he makes a lot of very powerful enemies. But they're for atmosphere, they're just amazing. And again, Shardlake has this friendship with a man called Barak, who is his opposite. He's not hugely clever. He's an ex-soldier. He's unthinkingly violent when we first meet him, and Shardlick's not sure he can trust him, and you have this slowly building friendship between these two men, and they're just lovely books. They're written with such an eye to historical detail. It just feels really real when you're reading them. You're just kind of enclosed, and I love that era. I'm desperate to read Wolf Hall, but I just can't get past the way she writes in third person present tense. Just messes me up completely.
Right.
But yeah, they're lovely books. The Shardlick books, really just joyous to read.
It's from hearing you talk about it and having read a little bit, it sounds he's almost like an investigator. He's looking into things.
Yeah, he is. He's hired to generally something is happening, and they want to know why, and they send him to find out, and he's incredibly resentful about it. They're like, "We'll pay you very well," and he's just like, "No, this is dangerous. I want to sit. I want to sit in my halls and argue with other lawyers and have my little feuds with other lawyers that are actually quite safe." Mm-hmm. And he's very cloistered because the lawyers sort of live in the inns of London, and that's very safe for him, and especially because he's a hunchback as well. He doesn't want to go out and be seen, and he's sort of forced out into the real world where his mind doesn't matter to most people, and also they don't see that mind. They see a hunchback. They call him the crookback lawyer. Everyone does, and you can tell that really hurts him. But they're just wonderful, and the way he goes about solving these hugely complicated things, and I kind of stole some of the rhythm of the Shardlick books for Age of Assassins and Blood of Assassins, in that they're quite weighted towards the back of the book, if you know what I mean. There's a lot of build up and introducing people and putting things in place, and then everything kicks off. And that's what sort of the Shardlick books do. They leave it even later though. But I wasn't sure I could get away with that in a fantasy book as much. I think people want stabbing. I think there's
early on.
I think there's a limit. I think you get to a point where people are tapping their foot and going, "Where's my stabbing? Give me some stabbing." So you have to get some stabbing. I like writing stabbing as well. So there is that.
Well, yeah, the crime element, the crime sort of investigative element in these books is definitely mirrored in your own work, because, as you said, a book isn't necessarily its genre at all, and your books are murder mysteries in a way, and this sounds like it was definitely a big influence, the Shardlick books, on yours. Definitely.
I mean, I think I just finished reading the last Shardlick when I started. When I wrote Age of Assassins. And the Shardlick books and Agatha Christie are kind of the crime influences that were coming into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's a proper Agatha Christie style reveal in Age of Assassins, which I love. I absolutely adore it.
Get them all into a room together and then reveal who the killer is.
Yeah, and this is how they did it. It's quite, for some people, I've really not liked it. I'm completely unapologetic about that. I'm just like, no, I love it. Sorry. It is literally why I wanted to write the book. So I'm just like, oh, no, you get no sorry for me.
Well, yes, you wrote the book that you wanted, not what people wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Yes, you took something that could have been just another Assassin's story or just something like that, but you've crafted it into something else. And having now heard about the Shardlick books, I can see having a character that's physically... People see just his disability, they see what he looks like, they don't see the clever mind and what he's capable of, which shares some similarities again with your books.
Though, having said that, if you look at it technically, Girton is a rubbish detective.
He's young and he's fumbling along for sure.
Yeah, he just kind of flukes into his into the ends of them. He kind of walks into what's actually going on rather than working it out. Especially in the first one. The first one, he's completely missed it, and it's just a fluke that he happens to say, "Oh, that's spoilery, isn't it?"
Well, yeah, we won't reveal it, but yes, he's an amateur detective.
Yes,
given
very
the
amateur.
Circumstances.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, right. So the fifth one on your list is an interesting one because somehow you've sellotaped two books together.
Yes, they're one book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's Consider Phlebos and Look to Windward by Ian Banks. And I consider them to be one book for the purposes of this, because I can't read one without reading the other. So for me, they're very much one book.
So Consider Phlebos is the first book in a series, is that right?
Yes. And it's the first one I read, and it was a proper, oh my God, I need to sit down type of, just the whole imagination of it and the way it subverted space opera and they were the bad guys, but were they actually the bad guys? And the culture itself is just amazing. And I love the way that he took something massive is going on, something absolutely huge and massive, and he just shows us everything that's happening through focusing on this one event. It is so clever and wonderfully written, and one of my absolute favourite books is Consider Phlebos. And then
the second half,
the second half is I'm trying to say as little as possible about these books, because I think they're books that if you don't know them, you should explore. I think the second half is there is Look to Win. Consider Phlebos is about war, and Look to Windward is about the after effects of war, of that same war. But the two books, I can't remember, they're a long way apart. I think they're tens of thousands of years apart. Maybe not that long. It's a long time anyway. Yeah. But have some of the same characters in it, and because he can do that with the world he's built, and what he does is just amazing and sad, and I cannot read Look to Windward without tears, just not sobbing, because I'm not a sobbing type of person, but there is always tears coming down my face when I read Look to Windward. It's one of the few, those two, I don't generally reread books. There's Watership Down, which I may have snuck into my back pocket to bring with me, and Look to Windward and Consider Phlebos. And I would probably read the Chronicles of Morgaine. No, I don't know if I would, actually. I don't know if I prefer my sometimes, I often prefer my memory of a book to rereading it.
Yeah, I've gone back and read some books. I've done this before when people recommend some of the classics that I just missed because I didn't have time to read everything, and I've gone back and read some of the classics, and I've really thought they're amazing, and some of them I've just not enjoyed, and I think they're very tied to a period of time and what was going on in the zeitgeist. But equally, books from my own earlier years I've gone back and reread, and some of them don't have the same power as they do now, now that they're compared to in the past.
Yeah, I read Redwall recently. Somebody said, well, not about a year ago, I think. Somebody said, read Redwall, you'll love it because you love talking animals, and I do love talking animals. And I read it, and I think Redwall is a book you need to have read at a certain time in your life.
Right.
Because it's actually, I found it wasn't challenging enough for me as a book. I kind of knew what was going to happen all the way through, and
right.
And it didn't deliver the sort of complexity that I kind of wanted. But I think if I'd read it when maybe I was younger, I would love it. Still, I think it would have a place in my heart, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Now children have got very definitive age gaps for reading for books. When you go into them, you've got, a section called children's, but then you've got middle grade, then you've got YA, and then you've got adult fiction, whatever that is, everything else. But it wasn't really... that my old library back in my hometown was children's section, and it was just everything. And then there was the adult section that was split into crime, history, whatever else, all the other genres. But it's a lot better now than it was then.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the fact that I read a lot of adult books. I think I read Chronicles of Thomas Covenant when I was 13, which I probably shouldn't have done. I really like the second Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. I don't like the first one.
I couldn't get through the first.
Yeah, I think I bailed on the first one. I think I read the second one first because my dad had them, and then I tried to read the first one and just found them deeply unpleasant. And I tried to read the Gap series as well, which was Stephen Donaldson's science fiction, and just couldn't. It's just found it so unpleasant that I was just like, oh no, not for me.
Yeah.
You can go back to the bookshop.
There are some books I could just read and read and read at any age, and they still resonate with me. Like June by Frank Herbert is one of my go-to books. That I can reread that so many times.
Watership Down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got it in. I would smuggle this with me. It's my favourite book, people. But Stephen said I couldn't bring it.
No.
Because I was only allowed 5 and I already had 6.
I'm stamping down.
I think it's unfair. 2 of them were sellotape together. That counts as one book. Yes. Anyway.
So, unfortunately, even though you do get to leave Earth, you are going to crash land on an alien planet. But the good news is you get to decide what kind of a planet. It could be a very specific planet. Like if you said, I want to crash land on Arrakis, or it could be a type of planet. So what would you prefer?
Oh, now.
Yeah.
I had this all sorted out, my answer.
And you've forgotten?
No, I've not forgotten.
Okay.
I just not thought it could be a certain type of planet.
Well, go for it.
Yeah, I was originally going to say a water planet because I'm writing a sort of shippy thing at the moment. I thought that'd be good research. Obviously, I would die because I can't look after myself with all the modern cons. Never mind if I was stuck with a stick and a boat somewhere. But I like the sea. I really like the sea. But if it can be anywhere out of a science fiction book, then I would like to crash land right in the middle of Ian Banks' culture, where it's basically incredibly safe and you can do anything. And be immortal, and you'll never have a worry again in your entire life. And also, this 5-book limit, that won't apply because the culture have all books in their databases. So I can brilliant idea. Cheat, basically, is what I'm saying.
Basically, you want to cheat the system and get everything.
Yes, yeah. But I mean, Ian Banks' culture will be the best place to live because there's no want or need, and you can do whatever you want. You want to be a bird? Be a bird. Mental. Be a cat.
I haven't read any of his culture novels yet. It's one thing that I need to do. And everyone says start with Player of Games, and they've told me a little bit about it. So that's going to be the first one I'm going to try, probably this year.
Player of Games is amazing. Use of weapons. I would say start with Consider Phlebas because it's the first one.
Right.
And also it's going to be coming out as a Netflix series, so it's like to be spoiled for you. And I can see it working, Consider Phlebas, because it all takes place within the caverns of a planet mostly, where I don't know how they do his other stuff. There'd be a lot of CGI, which is often a mistake.
Okay, well, I don't know about crash landing on a planet where you've got everything anyway, but I'm only letting you have the 5 books that you go with, so that's it. That's all you're allowed.
Oh. So does that mean I have to crash land on my water planet?
Maybe. I'll think about it. And
do I get a boat though?
You can crash on a little island that's on the water planet. There you go. I think that's bending the rules enough.
Okay.
I think that's fair. That's fair.
Like Robinson Crusoe.
Yeah. But you're not likely to survive for very long, are you?
No.
You're not a very handy person, is what I'm saying.
No. Take how long anyone else would survive and then divide that by 5.
You might get to read at least one of your books before dehydration kicks in or something. Yeah,
I'd probably decide to chop down the tree to make a fire and cut down the tree and it'd land on me and kill me. It'd be something unfortunate like that.
Just reminds me of the start of 6 Feet Under with all the strange deaths, and I can just see you featuring as one of those on an episode.
It would all go horribly wrong.
Like that man who leans out of his car on his drive to pick up the newspaper, falls out of the car, and the car rolls backwards over his head.
Isn't that what happened to Gaza?
Gaza's not dead.
He didn't die, but didn't he get run over by his own car when he was trying to eat a baked potato or something?
Possibly.
Which is just, it just struck me as astounding that you could manage it. Google it when we finish, Stephen.
I think
that's your homework.
Right, I'll go and do that. We strayed far from your island. You're in the wasteland of water.
Are you shocked?
To be honest, no. Not really, no.
I don't think you would be.
Right, but anyway, I think we'll leave it there, but thank you for joining me on Crash Landing.
It has been lovely as ever, Stephen. Have a lovely week, and I'll talk to you later on.
My thanks to RJ Barker for joining me for this episode. If you'd like to find out more about his novels, visit rjbarkerblog.wordpress.com. The first 2 books in the Wounded Kingdom trilogy are now out, The Age of Assassins and then Blood of Assassins. The 3rd book in the series, King of Assassins, will be published by Orbit Books in August this year. Thank you for listening, and if you'd like to support this podcast and all of the others on the Geek Syndicate network, visit patreon.com/Geek Syndicate.